Today, we'll be installing the Flatline Van Co. Transit Van Core Bumper. In this walkthrough, we'll guide you through everything you need to know to install your FVC front bumper step by step. Take a minute to review the full install guide before getting started too. This install does require some modifications to factory parts, so if you're not totally comfortable with that, we recommend checking out the Find a Builder or Upfitter page on our site to locate a pro installer near you. Before you start, make sure to disconnect your battery, both of them if your van has dual setup. Also, if you're planning to install winch or off-road lights, it's best to have those on hand now so you can install everything in one go. Let's get started by removing the headlights. Open the hood and remove the two T30 Torx screws holding each headlight in place. Carefully pop the headlights out and disconnect the 3 connectors from each unit. Be gentle with the plastic tabs, they can be a little fragile. Next up, removing the front bumper. Start at the top by removing the 5 plastic rivets and 4 10mm screws. Take off your license plate or plate cover and the 10mm hardware behind it. Then move into the wheel wells and remove 2 plastic rivets and 2 T25 Torx screws per side. Under the bumper, remove the 8 10mm screws holding the splash guard. Use a 12-inch extension to reach the last 2 10mm screws that secure the splash shield to the van. They're a little high up there, so you'll really need that extension to do this part. Pop out the bottom clip on the splash shield and disconnect the wire harness holder. You should be able to remove the whole splash shield after this. To remove the fenders, there are 3 tabs in front, with the bottom 2 being reachable behind the fender. There's also 3 clips at the top that you need to leverage out. This is mirrored on the other side. Remove those, then take out the final 10mm screws holding the bumper skin to the fender liners. Inside the engine bay, loosen the 2 T25 Torx screws near the fenders, just enough to pull the fender out from under them. Before pulling off the bumper cover completely, disconnect the main wiring harness next to the windshield washer fluid reservoir and unclip the wiring harness from the windshield washer fluid reservoir. This lets the harness come off with the bumper. You may also need to disconnect the wiper fluid tube that runs to your front camera. Once that's done, remove the 4 large clips along the top of the bumper cover and remove the whole thing from the van. With the bumper off, it's time to remove the fender liners and air deflectors. Pull out the 10mm screw holding each fender liner, if your van has them, and remove the Christmas tree clips securing the air deflectors. Then remove the factory metal bumper. You'll start with the lower air dam. It's held on with 4 8mm screws on the back and several plastic clips. Once that's off, disconnect the wiring harness from the back of the bumper. Now carefully remove the adaptive cruise control sensor using a T25 Torx and 8mm socket. Be gentle with the plastic mounting tabs. Remove the 8 factory bolts holding the metal bumper to the frame. You can also remove the windshield washer fluid reservoir bracket that's attached with these bolts as well, but hold on to it for later. Then cut the bumper off the factory mounts using a sawzall or cutoff wheel. Once the bumper is cut off, use a punch to mark the factory spot welds on the bumper mounts. Drill them out with a spot weld cutter, or use the appropriate size drill bits to drill out the spot welds. Afterward, grind the area smooth and paint it to protect against corrosion. Now we're ready to start installing the new bumper. Begin by taping the included shim plates into position. Install the clip nuts into the designated frame slots. Loosely mount the winch cradle to the frame horns using the supplied 1/2 inch by 13 and 3/8 by 16 bolts, washers, and lock nuts. Route the 1/2 inch by 13 bolts through the upper 4 holes on each side of the winch cradle, and the 3/8 by 16 bolts will be routed through the lower holes in the cradle for each side. After the winch cradle is snug but not fully tightened on the front of the van, you can remove the tape from the shim plates. Then, check the alignment of the winch cradle to make sure it's centered. The mounting points for the winch cradle are slotted to allow for this adjustment. Once it looks centered on both sides, you can fully tighten all of the bolts for the winch cradle mounting points. If the cradle and the FVC bumper skin don't align with the cutout of the factory bumper skin later on in the process, you can remove those parts to access these winch cradle bolts in order to loosen them and reposition the cradle before tightening back down. Now, you can reinstall the windshield washer fluid reservoir bracket using the 1/2 inch by 13 bolts through the winch cradle to the frame horn. If you're installing a winch, bolt it to the cradle using the hardware that came with the winch. The cradle fits winches up to 24 inches long, and we recommend the Warn VR Evo 12S or Xeon 12S Platinum. Other winches with dimensions similar to these may fit, but may require modifications for clearance. If you're running off-road lights instead of a winch, now's the time to install the center light brackets onto the winch cradle, using the supplied 3/8 by 16 bolts, washers, and lock nuts. Then attach your lights using the included hardware. Finish routing the wiring for your winch or lights and secure it to the winch cradle with zip ties along with the factory wiring harness and any other cables. If you're installing the optional skid plate, add the center clip nut and bolt it up by using the 3/8 by 16 hardware. Make sure the clip nut barrel is fully seated in the center hole. You'll also need to install the fender liner braces for the skid plate by adding 1/4 inch by 20 clip nuts to each bracket in the orientation shown here. Then mount the braces to the skid plate and the van using the included hardware. If your van has adaptive cruise control, remove the sensor from its original bracket and plastic tabs. Then bolt it to the FVC bumper skin using the factory hardware and spacer, and reinstall the sensor assembly back into place. you're adding any lights to the bumper, now's a good time to do that. If you purchase the optional bull bar, install it by removing the cover plates and reusing the hardware to bolt it into place. To reinstall your parking sensors, disconnect the two inner sensors from the harness, pry them out of the factory bumper skin, and reinstall them into the FEC bumper using the factory bezels. Make sure everything is fully seated and securely plugged in. Now it's time to modify the factory bumper. Place the bumper cover on the ground or on a set of sawhorses, then lay out the supplied template and align it with the center holes and fog-light contours. Mark your cut lines around the perimeter of the template in the slotted holes after taping it to the skin. Using a pneumatic saw or cutoff wheel, make your cuts along the lines. For a cleaner cut, especially around the corners, a step bit helps smooth things out by way of drilling out each corner of template marks. Don't stress too much about getting it perfect. A rubber gasket trim will cover it later. After the bumper skin has been cut to the shape of the template, test fit it on the van to make sure it lines up with the winch cradle. If it looks good to go, reinstall the factory bumper skin. This is done by simply going in reverse order of the steps we showed for the removal process earlier. Once the factory bumper skin is fully installed, add the rubber trim to the cutout portion of the bumper skin, starting at the point shown here. A helpful tip for installing this trim: make sure the metal clip portion of the trim is facing out and away from the van. This helps with the grip it maintains on the bumper skin itself and its contour to the shape of the trim for the best aesthetic results when installed. Fit the Flatline Vanco bumper skin onto the trimmed factory bumper cover and check your clearances. Trim more if needed, but if it fits well, you're ready to move on. To mount the FEC bumper skin, plug in the parking sensors, then set the bumper into place on the cradle. Now you can attach the FEC bumper skin with two 1/2 inch by 13th, 1 1/4 inch screws. Remove the corner cover plates on the bumper skin and screw in the 4 3/8 by 16th 1 inch bolts. These will thread into the 4 clip nuts you mounted onto the winch cradle earlier. Before fully tightening these, finish mounting the fender liner braces to the OEM bumper skin. Secure the bumper skin to the skid plate using the 1/4 inch by 20 screws and washers. At this point, you can also install the license plate bracket using the rivet nuts located below the cover plate and/or winch fairlead. Now, you can return to the 4 bolts mounting the bumper skin to the winch cradle and fully tighten them. Then, replace the cover plates and screw in the 2 1/2 inch by 13th 1¼ inch screws onto the cover plate if you don't have a winch installed, or through the winch fair lead if you did install a winch. Be sure to use blue Loctite for these as well. If you've added a fair lead, install the hook. Insert the stainless steel pin and retaining ring into the hook using the snap ring pliers, making sure it's fully seated. Then, after you've wired up the winch to power in your van, slowly retract to stow the hook. And that's it! Your bumper install is complete. If you've got parking sensors, just know it might take a drive cycle or two for them to recalibrate, but you're ready to hit the road, take on a trail, and show off that new FEC bumper. If you got questions or need help, feel free to reach out to our support team. Thanks for wrenching along with us. We'll see you out there.